So good evening, everyone. We are going to start with a new chapter today, that is health and diseases. Very important portion as far as the prelims exam is concerned, and there is a definite chance of getting a question from this section. We have some portions of the kingdoms, right? We did the 5 kingdoms. We have to still do a little bit of details in that portion, but we are going to do that in the end. And we're going to start today with health and diseases. Before we can start, let's try this one question. Just like a little recap. A very simple question from something which we studied in the last class. Let's see if you can answer that. Okay, so we have Sai saying the answer should be B. The question is, which of the following cell organelle play the most significant role in protein synthesis? And Pranay also says should be B. So B option is endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes. This is absolutely correct. Ribosomes are our main site of protein synthesis, and the endoplasmic reticulum, they can also have ribosomes attached to them. So in this case, both of these will be playing a role in protein synthesis. One part of endoplasmic reticulum, which is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And it's really good that all of you are getting this correct. Amar, Ganjan, Chaitanya, Seepaj, everybody is the right answer. Simple question. Let's go over to our main topic of the day. Now, health is something which is very simply understood by all of you. You know what this means. You have an idea about what it is. We're going to focus on the aspect of diseases. Okay. And the disease portion is going to be predominantly what will require our focus. First, let's talk about the basic definitions and such aspects. We'll classify the different diseases also. Let's talk about the definition of health. Health is in 3 compartments: physical, mental, and social. So our simplest understanding of health is that there is an absence of disease. But beyond that also, beyond this absence of disease, also there is a positive context in all these 3 aspects. Physically, you should be well, physical well-being. Okay, that means all the functions of your body, all the parts of your body, they should be working properly. Mentally, you should be alert, you should be able to perform all your daily life tasks normally, and mentally, there should be well-being, mental well-being. The third one, social. Human beings are social beings. You're supposed to exist in the setup of a society, and being socially well means that you are able to have an interaction in the society, you're able to stay in a society, and you're able to network on those aspects. Okay? So physical, mental, and social well-being. That is the wholesome explanation of what health is. Please write this down. Health is the complete physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual and not merely the absence of a disease. Not merely the absence of a disease. Now let's talk about the different types of diseases which could be there. Okay, the different types of diseases which could be there. So broadly, we are dividing our diseases into two types. The first one says congenital diseases. Congenital, the word implies that this is something which is happening right from the time of birth. Congenital disease, something or a disease which is happening right from the time of birth. That is what a congenital disease is. Then we have acquired diseases, the second type. So if one is coming to you right from the time of birth, the other one would be which is going to happen or which is going to take place after you are born. That means you either get it through the environment or through your lifestyle or through any other organism. Any way you get it, but you get it or you acquire it after being born. Right? So this is the broad categorization of both these disease types. Right? Let's write about both of them. First, please write down congenital diseases. Congenital diseases. Any abnormality in the structure, any abnormality in the structure or function, of a person which is present right from the time of birth. And you can write down two examples. Congenital heart defect. So this congenital heart defect means some defect in your heart right from the time of birth. Now there are different manifestations of this. One very commonly known thing is when you say that there is a hole in somebody's heart. Okay, there is a hole in somebody's heart, that is actually a congenital heart defect. That's one type of congenital heart defect. Then any type of genetic disease which is there, that would also be a congenital in nature, like you have Down syndrome. Okay, Down syndrome. And another example you can write down, cleft lip. Cleft lip is a condition in which the lips are not exactly formed in one, what should I say, as one entity. There are breaks in the lips. So those breaks or passages are called clefts, cleft lip. Okay, this would be a congenital disease. कोई बात नहीं. Thank you. Okay, write down what is acquired. Acquired disease. Any disease which is not present at the time of birth. Any disease which is not present at the time of birth, but develops at a later stage of the life of an organism. Now, to understand how these diseases are formed, we have two categorizations on this basis. The first one is communicable or infectious disease. Now, in this portion, when you're talking about health, we are going to come across many standard terms which you are expected to know and which I would be using henceforth. We have the word pathogen. Maybe you've heard this word also. Pathogen is a disease-causing organism. Okay, a disease-causing organism is the pathogen. What does this mean? Like, suppose you have a virus which is giving you a disease. So that virus becomes a pathogen for you. Or a bacteria which is giving you a disease, so bacteria is a pathogen. Any living organism which gives a disease or which causes a disease in another organism, that is the pathogen. Okay. So when pathogens or organisms or microorganisms, as they are more commonly causing the diseases, cause a disease, we use the word communicable or infectious. Okay, communicable disease or infectious. Communicable or infectious, it is one or the same thing. When do we say something is infectious? When it is caused by a pathogen. Okay. And any other type of disease which is not being caused by a pathogen, that would be hence non-communicable or non-infectious. So here what we could have lifestyle related diseases. Okay. Like some heart disease. Or we studied in trans fats that trans fats could cause cardiovascular diseases. So, just give me a minute. So consumption of that trans fat is actually something which has happened to you because of a certain kind of lifestyle in terms of your food habits which you adopted. The second thing could be the environment. Like they say, you know, harmful sun rays, solar radiations, they can cause skin cancers, right? Or air pollution can cause respiratory disease. Increasing pollution in the air can lead to asthma. So environment can be responsible or your lifestyle can be responsible. Anything but not a microorganism, not a pathogen. So two types of diseases, communicable and non-communicable. Fine. We will do both of these. We'll discuss both of these. We'll first do communicable. Let's write down. Please write down communicable or infectious diseases. Communicable or infectious diseases. Those diseases which are caused by disease-causing organisms called pathogens. Disease-causing organisms called pathogens. So you can write down any example here. You can write down COVID-19, right? You can write down tuberculosis. You can write down fungal diseases. Any of these, everything will qualify as infectious diseases. Then for non-infectious diseases, please write down non-infectious diseases. Those diseases which are not caused by pathogens, but by but by lifestyle or environmental factors. But by lifestyle or environmental factors. All right? Here you can write down asthma, you can write down cancer. We will talk about the examples also later on. But here also you can mention something. Now I also want to talk to you about how you are supposed to prepare this. Or where do you get the content? What I am going to basically be doing is I'm going to be delivering a lot of concepts in terms of how you can understand this idea of disease and different types of disease. But any kind of factual information which is needed, so the main source for that is going to be your current affairs. Okay, your current affairs will, whenever there is a disease which is in news, that's there in the newspaper, then it finally lands up in your monthly current affairs magazine. So that's where you learn the things. So we cannot like discuss all the diseases on the planet, neither are you expected to do that. But whenever there is a disease in news, you go and learn about that. Okay. So there is this one portal I want to share. In case you do not find the information relevant in the newspaper, or in case you want to actually go back and study about something, what you can do is you can open this government site. So this is the National Health Portal of India. Okay, the National Health Portal of India. Why I am taking you to a government site is because you're sitting for a government exam. And the credibility of this information, which is by a government ministry, that's very high. So if there is any confusion at any end, this is where you go and look up. Okay. So this is just for a reference. Please don't open it and start studying. So in the menu, there is this disease condition A to Z. Okay, there is a disease or condition A to Z, and this is a very, very comprehensive list. Okay, you can see on your screens from A to Z, everything has been listed. So whatever I want to look up, I can just go on this page, like let me open L, let's see. Okay. So you get the list, complete list of all the diseases from L. Obviously, this can also not be a complete list, but most of your things are available. Let's open leprosy. So see, under this leprosy, it gives you again different headings. So you have introduction, you have symptoms, then you have causes. After that, it also talks about diagnosis, management, and prevention. And it gives you all this very systematically and in different headings. Now, what do you focus on? So there is something called you must know and something additionally which is important. So whenever you are preparing any disease, the first thing you need to know about it is what is its cause. Okay, what is causing a disease? Is it an infectious disease? Is it a non-infectious disease? Like leprosy is there. Leprosy is a bacterial disease caused by a pathogen, bacteria. Right? So you need to know the cause. After that, you need to have some idea about the symptoms of the disease. What is it? Is fever happening in this disease? Is it a respiratory problem? Is it let's talk about COVID here. Okay, COVID. What is the cause of COVID? So there is a coronavirus which is causing this. What are the symptoms? The normal symptoms are that people can have fever, there can be shortness of breath, then there is loss of taste, loss of smell, then diarrhea is also there in some people. So such variety of symptoms can be there, and you need to have an idea about that. After that, there is an aspect of origin and spread. This spread becomes more important to us if it is a disease which is limited to India or some part of India. Like if I talk about the origin of COVID virus or coronavirus infection, so this is in the Wuhan province of China. That's where it started. We still don't know the exact details of it. The WHO team is currently there in China investigating how this whole thing happened. But again, origin is important because in the prelims question, you can have a statement saying that, okay, this disease is originating in this part, originated from this portion, originated from Central Asia or whatever it is for different diseases. And then spread, I told you, more relevant from the perspective of India. Like you have a disease like a Nipah virus infection was there. It was limited to the southern states of India. So you need to know about this aspect also. Then there is an aspect of diagnosis and management. Now this you might not need for all the diseases. Okay, this you will not need for all the diseases. Like every disease which comes in news, you don't have to go and read about how its diagnosis is supposed to be there or how it will be managed. You only go into this if this is something which is reoccurring in news or if this is something which is a matter of debate. So you maybe have an editorial about it. Like tuberculosis, the diagnosis, even for this for leprosy also, that there are different lines of diagnostic procedures, that how you diagnose the disease. Or for HIV, there are different processes in which the diagnosis is made. So you need to have some idea about that because that becomes more significant. But it's not like if you read something like, Lassa fever is there in West Asia and you don't have to go and find out that, okay, how the diagnosis of that disease is done, right? Even if you just know for a disease, lesser known disease like Lassa fever, if you know that this is a viral infection, that is good enough, right? But when this comes in editorial, then you know that, yes, this becomes predominant. One last aspect, which might not be relevant to, again, all the diseases, is any kind of a national program or a national initiative which is there against this disease. Any disease which you're reading. Like we have a pulse polio campaign, right? You might have heard about that. Then we have an AIDS control program. Then we have a vector control program. We will talk about what vectors are. So if there is a national program about it, then you need to know about the disease, right? A very good source of just looking into these national programs is your India Yearbook, right? There is a chapter on health. You can refer to that, but again, just like this website, it has to be a reference. You don't open and start reading about all the national programs, right? But if you have an editorial, say, which is talking about maybe the success of one particular national program which has, controlled a disease in some part of the country, then you can go back and refer your India Yearbook to see what that program is about. Okay, but if you try and do and cover all the diseases, it's going to take you unnecessarily a lot of time. Second, you will not remember. Third, it will not be useful, right? So whenever you feel that something is in news, something is relevant in terms of current affairs, then you go a little bit more into it. But these are the aspects, right? These first three, I will say you must know for all the diseases. Whenever you are reading about a disease in news, okay, suppose there is an outbreak of Kala Azar in Bihar, then you need to know what is Kala Azar, what kind of fever it is, where is it spreading, right? This. And if there is a news which says that, okay, Kala Azar, something has happened, there is a national program, you know about that. Or maybe there is some disease like rotavirus infection was there, so government has brought up a vaccine for it. So that comes as a part of the management, then you know about it, right? I'm just broadly trying to put emphasis on this because we will not be going into these aspects for all the diseases which we cover. We are going towards technical concepts like which are needed for you to understand all of this, but you will learn these things from your current affairs portion. Okay, I hope I've made myself clear. If anybody has any confusion, you can ask. We are going to start with the infectious diseases. We'll start with infectious or communicable diseases. When it comes to infectious diseases or communicable diseases, there is one more confusion which people usually face. I'm using these two words, infectious, communicable. Both of these words mean the same thing. What do they mean? They mean that there is a pathogen involved in causing these diseases. But from whatever you can remember from school maybe, there is one more word which is contagious. You know about this word? Contagious? Right? So a lot of people confuse communicable and contagious. Right? What do we mean by contagious? Contagious means a disease which can spread from one person to the other through contact. Again, I would give the example of your COVID virus infection. It is contagious. You can get it from another person. That's why we are all wearing masks. Right? At least most of us are still wearing masks. I'm hoping that we are. Okay. Right? So that becomes a contagious disease. It is caused by a virus, making it an infectious or a communicable disease. But all your communicable or infectious diseases will not be contagious. Think about a disease like polio, right? I just spoke to you about polio. Polio virus infection, imagine you meeting a person who has polio. If you come in contact with that person, maybe you live with that person, you're not going to get polio. Polio is caused by a virus. It is an infectious or communicable disease, but it is not contagious. So it is not a necessary or a definite condition that all infectious diseases will be contagious. They can be contagious or they cannot be contagious, right? Think about a disease like tetanus. I have tetanus on my board, right? Tetanus is not contagious, right? Typhoid is not contagious. Typhoid and cholera, they're caused by contaminated water, right? But tuberculosis can be contagious. Leprosy can also be contagious, right? So communicable or infectious diseases can be contagious. That means they will spread through contact, or they can be non-contagious. That means they will find other ways to spread, which can be water, which can be food, which can be mosquitoes, any other way. We're going to talk in detail about that, but not direct contact. Fine. Please have absolute clarity on this topic, on this idea. Is there a difference between hereditary and congenital diseases? Yes. Nemish or Nemish, I'm not sure. Again, I've already apologized for mispronouncing names. So hereditary and congenital. Okay, the word hereditary, not just in terms of diseases, but in a generic way, means something which is transferred. Okay, which is transferred from one generation to the other. A congenital simply means that it is something which is happening from birth. It might not necessarily be hereditary. Okay, if something is hereditary, that will definitely be transmitted. But there is a possibility of a defect happening only in that particular person. Right? Like a disease like say Down syndrome, okay? So none of the parents would have Down syndrome, right? But the child would be born with Down syndrome. So when the child is born with Down syndrome, we say it is a congenital disease, right? But not a hereditary one. It would be hereditary if it is coming from the parents. Okay. I'll give you another example of a disease like sickle cell anemia. Okay. There are two people, both of whom have sickle cell anemia, right? And they have children who also have sickle cell anemia. So this means this defect of sickle cell anemia, this has been transferred from the parents to the children, right? For the child, they have sickle cell anemia as a congenital disease, but it is also hereditary because it is coming from the parents, right? But even without the parents having a defect, the child can have developed a defect at the time of his birth. Okay, so hereditary and congenital, just understand the difference of the words. Okay. One more question we have from Ramya. So when a child is born and the doctors say that the child is likely to get the symptoms of a disease at a later stage in life, maybe due to genetics or some other cause, do we categorize them as congenital? See, there are diseases which are there right from the time of birth, right? But they might start showing at a later age. Okay, so even in that case, if it has been predicted with certainty, now there are two things. One is that you say that, okay, there is a likelihood that it might not be possible. In those cases, we will not exactly categorize it in as a congenital thing, but if it is a definite thing that a person will have symptoms, if that is the way it has been predicted that yes, this child will grow up to have this particular disease, then that would mean that it is congenital. Like congenital heart defect. People who have congenital heart defect, that defect in their heart is there right from the moment they are born, right? But they might not have any symptoms. They might have symptoms, say, after 20 years. They might start having some form of symptoms. But still, it would be categorized as a congenital disease. Okay? And your insurance companies are actually very stringent about all of these because you're not insured for any congenital diseases which you have, even if they are not discovered, right? Okay, so that's it for our questions. Now we are going to start with our first group of diseases, which is the bacterial diseases. So the first infectious disease or the first pathogen we are considering here is bacteria. So any disease which is caused by bacteria is our bacterial disease. Okay, you can note down these examples, right? So now with the third class, for me, you have finally graduated to a level that I will not be dictating a lot of things there, right? Because there are very small nitbits which are there. So I am expecting that you keep noting down whatever is coming on your screens or whatever I'm writing on the board. Please start doing that at your own end. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, right? There are many, many, many more bacterial diseases. This is just to give you some idea. Okay, a few examples we've written. What we are going to discuss here is tuberculosis. Just one disease I've picked up for discussion, and that is because of its increased emphasis and the fact that it keeps coming in news. And in India, we have the highest number of cases of tuberculosis, so it's very significant. We have a national tuberculosis program also. The diagnosis of tuberculosis is controversial, and we have resistance in case of tuberculosis treatment, so we will talk briefly about it. Tuberculosis, also known as TB in your common language. Now, the first thing we need to know is what is the cause. It is caused by a pathogen, and the name of this pathogen is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the bacteria which is causing this disease, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis can affect the lungs or any other part of the body. Based on that, when it affects the lungs, when this bacteria is affecting the lungs, we call this as pulmonary tuberculosis. Whenever you are going to read the word pulmonary, you should know it is for the lungs. Okay, the word pulmonary is used for the lungs. Then, other parts of the body which can be involved are bone, intestine, skin, not skin, sorry, brain. These parts can also be involved. This is also another type of tuberculosis, and this we are going to call as extrapulmonary tuberculosis. Okay, so please note all of this down, right? The more common type of tuberculosis is the pulmonary tuberculosis. Okay, it is the pulmonary tuberculosis, and this is what we are going to talk about here. Have a look here. What are the symptoms of tuberculosis? First one is cough. Okay, coughing is one of the most classical and identifying feature of tuberculosis. So I'm hoping you have seen those advertisements. Again, taking you to the advertisement. The Amitabh Bachchan is the brand ambassador of this tuberculosis program in India. So what happens in those advertisements is Amitabh Bachchan is coming in contact with a person who's been seen coughing, and he asks, how long have you been coughing? Okay, so the person says around 2 weeks. So then Amitabh Bachchan tells that if you are having cough for 15 days or more, it could be tuberculosis. Okay, 15 दिन से ज़्यादा खांसी हो तो वो टीबी भी हो सकता है. आप जांच करवाइए. Right? This is actually the identifying feature or the main symptom. So you can write this down. Persistent cough for more than 2 weeks. Okay, persistent cough for more than 2 weeks can be tuberculosis. Okay, so that is one symptom. After that, you have afternoon fever. Okay, so if you monitor your fever continuously, so there is an afternoon, there is a rise in fever in the afternoon. That is pulmonary tuberculosis. Then we have weight loss. Okay, sudden weight loss, and these people have very frail structures, very thin, sleek, fair structures. That's also one of the countryside jokes where they say कि तो इतना पतला हो गया कि जैसे तुझे टीबी हो गया. So people with tuberculosis have a very sudden weight loss. Then blood-stained sputum. What is this sputum? Sputum is your balgam, if you understand that in Hindi, right? So this sputum is supposed to be stained with blood. Okay, some blood can come out along with this. And this sputum is actually how we identify tuberculosis also. So the test or the diagnosis of tuberculosis which we do an X-ray, of course, to see what is the condition of the lungs, and we do a sputum test. So that balgam which is there, that is taken to the lab and it is checked. What would it be checked for? It will be checked for the presence of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Is it there? If I take this sputum of this person who is suffering from tuberculosis, I take it to the lab, I test it, what will I find? I will find that these bacteria which are causing tuberculosis, that are there. That will confirm my diagnosis that yes, because Mycobacterium tuberculosis is there, so this person has pulmonary tuberculosis. Okay? The last one is night sweats. Night sweats. Okay? So this is what happens in tuberculosis. Fine. Now we'll talk about how we are dealing with this disease. So Smriti is now, we are back to this hereditary and congenital thing. All hereditary diseases are congenital, but not all congenital diseases are hereditary in nature. Am I right? Yeah, more or less. Yes, you are correct. But we usually do not make this comparison, so you can just understand them as separate things. But as far as the factual clarity of your statement is there, yes, that's correct. Okay. Let's talk about what do we do about a bacterial infection. Okay. Now I'm not only talking about tuberculosis, I'm going to take you to a generic concept of bacterial management. Whenever you have bacteria, it can be killed by a range of drugs or medicines which we have, which are called antibiotics. So you all know about antibiotics. You've all taken antibiotics over numerous occasions. What is this antibiotic? An antibiotic is a medicine which is there to destroy our bacteria, to kill our bacteria. So when you have a bacterial infection, the doctor is going to give you an antibiotic depending on the kind of infection which you have. Okay. Remember this, that this is only for bacterial infection. Okay. When this antibiotic, when it is prescribed to you, you would have noted that there is a specific dosage which you are required to take. Like it might be a 250 milligram tablet, or it might be a 500 milligram tablet, right? You're aware about these things? So there is a fixed dosage which is prescribed. Then there is a frequency which is told to you. That how often are you supposed to take this medicine? Are you supposed to take it once? Are you supposed to take it twice? Are you supposed to take it 3 times? Right? That is also told. The doctor will tell you that, okay, take this medicine, दिन में 3 बार खाना है, या 2 बार खाना है, twice, thrice, whatever is the story. And you will also be told about the duration for which you are supposed to take this treatment. Right? Now this duration can be 3 days, this duration can be 5 days, this duration can be 7 days, 9 days, again which will be dependent on the infection. But all this is fixed. This is a drug regime, this is a drug therapy which has been made for you based on the kind of infection which you have. Okay. Now how do they correlate this? They correlate this according to the life cycle of the bacteria. That in what cycle or in how much time does the bacteria reproduce? And how much time will it be created again? How much time will it attack? Right? Based on that, this has been designed. Right? Different antibiotics will be applicable for treatment of different kinds of bacteria. Right? Now, the main issue at hand which we have, this is something which you've all maybe read about also, that a possibility of resistance. Okay, you might have heard about the term resistance or drug resistance, multiple drug resistance, these terms are there. Now what happens in this resistance? Please remember, when I'm talking to you about resistance, We are discussing it in the context of antibiotics, but this concept is the same. It will be relevant anywhere. Even if somebody is talking to you about pesticide resistance, the idea is the same. Okay, or antiviral drug resistance, anti-malarial drug resistance. Idea is the same here. So please open all your parachutes and listen very carefully to me. This is an important concept. It will come across at a number of places, and make sure that you've understood it. When I say resistance, I mean that now this antibiotic is not going to kill the bacteria. If my antibiotic which I am giving to kill the bacteria, if that is not able to kill my bacteria, so I will say my bacteria has now become resistant. Let me show you one cartoon which kind of depicts this in a very simplified manner. Then I will elaborate why it is happening. These are your normal bacteria. This is an antibiotic which we have created. So the antibiotic says we kill bacteria without antibiotic resistance. Okay. So antibiotic resistance, when it is not there, the normal bacteria which are there, antibiotic, its job is to go and kill it. But if these bacteria have developed resistance, they are now antibiotic resistant, then what will happen is these antibiotics, they are helpless. They say we can do nothing to these bacteria with antibiotic resistance. We can do nothing about them, and the bacteria are actually very happy. They say let's destroy the human immune system, and then they are laughing also about it, right? This is basically the idea. When I say antibiotic resistance, that means that the bacteria are now resistant to any effect from the antibiotic. You can give the antibiotic, nothing is going to happen to the bacteria. Okay. So the main thing to be understood here now is, why is this happening? Okay. Why are the bacteria or any microorganisms or pests or anything, the idea I told you is common. Why is this happening? Right? See, one thing would be that there are multiple reasons why this could happen. Okay, it's not just one idea, but you have to broadly understand this. There is a possibility of this happening naturally also. Okay, that naturally maybe the bacteria have changed their structure. Okay, we understand that as mutation. The bacteria have undergone mutation. Like for COVID, you might have read this, that a new strain of COVID has come. Okay, a new strain of COVID. What does that mean, a new strain? That means something in the structure of that virus has changed. Something in its structure has changed. So if we are giving a medicine, like for COVID, we do not have any particular medicine as of today. So let's leave COVID. Let's talk about maybe tuberculosis. Okay. So we are giving tuberculosis medicine, antibiotic to a person, but the bacteria in his body, they have mutated. Now they've changed form. So naturally, now that older medicine would not be effective. So naturally they have gained resistance. This is one way, right? The second thing what happens is, I told you about the dosage, frequency and duration, right? If there is a breach in that, then also resistance can develop. Now I'll tell you, I'll simplify this further because this is a complex concept. Suppose I have cold. I think I am coming down with something. So I go to the doctor and he prescribes antibiotics to me, and he tells me that, okay, for 5 days you have to take this medicine. I start taking it. After 3 days, I feel like, okay, now I'm doing okay. And I stop taking the medicine, right? I stop taking that medicine and I keep the rest of the dosage which was prescribed to me in my medicine cabinet, and then I forget about it. After 6 months, I start to experience similar symptoms. So maybe if I had cough and cold, I'm having cough and cold again. So now I think to myself, should I be, going to the doctor again? Or can I just take that medicine which is lying in my cabinet? right? I could do that. The doctor is going to charge 2,000 rupees from me again and then give me the same medicine. What is the point, right? So I might think like that. I might rationalize and I will take those antibiotics again. Fine. Now I have done two things here. Two mistakes have been done by me. The first one is that I have done self-medication. I've medicated myself without consultation with my doctor. The second thing which I have done is that I have not completed the course. Okay. The first time when I was supposed to take that medicine for 5 days, I did not take it for 5 days. I finished that up there and then in 3 days because I felt okay, right? So I disturbed that treatment and I gave self-medication. All of this will categorize as misuse of antibiotics. Okay, misuse of antibiotics. Now what is happening because of both these actions of mine? When I'm not completing the course, okay, so there might be a possibility that, you know, the weaker bacteria are killed, but the stronger ones are left out in the body, which needed 2 more days of medicines for them to be destroyed or eliminated from my body. So they might not be able to cause a disease because they are less in number, but they might then keep growing further, right? And they might develop that resistance. They will have the opportunity to grow and prosper. That is one problem. The second thing is when I'm giving the same antibiotic the next time, I might not have had the same kind of infection. To me, it is cough and cold, but it might be still different. This might be a viral infection. You can get cold and cough in a viral infection also. I have a viral infection, but I'm taking antibiotics. What is going to happen is that some amount of bacteria which are there in my body, they would become desensitized over time. Because of my overexposure to antibiotics, they will become desensitized to it. Okay, they will develop a way to be resistant to the action of these antibiotics because I'm unnecessarily giving them the chance. And my body did not need it, but I had it anyway. Okay, that's why they say you don't overuse these medicines. That's why the government has a red line policy on these drugs, that they are labeled particularly and cannot be bought without a prescription. Okay, a lot of these particular drugs. The idea is to prevent resistance from happening. Okay, there can be other ways also in which I can expose my body to these antibiotics. Suppose there is a pharmaceutical company. Okay, there's a pharmaceutical company which is manufacturing these antibiotics, and what can happen is that they are not treating their wastes and disposing of everything in the water body. Okay, this water is coming to your house, right? You're drinking this water and you are drinking water, but antibiotic is entering your body, which has been released from the pharmaceutical company. Again, overexposing your microorganisms, which can lead to resistance. Okay. Then the next thing would be that maybe you are eating some animals, okay, some non-vegetarian food, which animal, maybe like it's chicken, okay, that chicken is being treated with some antibiotics. That's the same antibiotic which you also take, and the chicken is also being given that antibiotic for some treatment, okay, or maybe any other form of animal which you are eating. So when they are getting that antibiotic and then you are consuming it, antibiotic is entering your body also. Again, an overexposure can lead to resistance. Okay, so any way in which this additional medication is entering your body, it is going to be harmful. Okay, it is going to be harmful. Even if it is less, then also it will be harmful. Even if it is irregular in terms of the dosage which is needed, or if it is more, in any of these cases, resistance can happen, right? If I apply this concept to other medicines or other things other than antibiotics, then also same idea will apply. Like pesticide resistance, they say, right? Pesticide in all those areas where green revolution came up and there are large farms, they have money. So in those areas, pesticides have been used in an indiscriminate manner. Okay, the crops might not be needing so much pesticide, but it is still being given, right? So there, what can happen is after a point of time, the pests will become resistant to the pesticides. So you're giving pesticides, but pests are still there, pests are destroying the crop. Why? Again, overexposure, desensitization, or mutation, anything but a resistance, pesticide resistance can develop. It can be seen in at smaller levels in maybe your own house also. Like, you know, you are, okay, the mosquito season is there, and what you are doing is you have to kill these mosquitoes, so you are using mortine. Okay, you're using mortine for a very long time, and after a point of time, you find out that, you know, you are spraying regularly every week, you are putting that spray, but mosquitoes still stay. Why? Because the mosquitoes have now become resistant. Resistant to what? Resistance to mortine, right? Now the question is, what do you do? When resistance has developed, what is supposed to be done? There is no possible way to reverse resistance. Pest resistance, mortine resistance, antibiotic resistance, we cannot do anything about it. We cannot do anything to go back. The only option with us is that we have to shift to another form of medication. So if mortine is not effective on your mosquitoes, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to buy HIT, or you're supposed to buy All Out, or you're supposed to buy Baygon. But mortine's story is end. There is no way to reverse this. And that lies the biggest challenge of antibiotic resistance. Okay, that once it is there, once it has been developed for against a particular medication, you cannot reverse it. The only idea is to change the form of medicine, right? I'm going to relate this to tuberculosis now, right? That's where we started. For tuberculosis, the problem is that the tuberculosis treatment is a very lengthy one. Okay, so if you have tuberculosis, it is 100% curable. Okay, tuberculosis is one disease which has absolutely no problem, but we have people in India who've been suffering from it for years and years. Why? Because the treatment is long. If you will be prescribed a medicine for 6 months, say 9 months, right? And people find it difficult to comply to such long tenures of treatment, because we are a poor country. We have people who have, daily livelihood needs which they have to address. They have to go to work. They cannot go to the hospital, right? Or maybe, they find it difficult to afford the medicine also. So there might be breaches. When they feel better, they stop taking medicine, right? So 9 months, they're not able to adhere to the treatment. 6 months, they're not able to adhere. So resistance develops. Now, when resistance develops, what happens is we have to change their medicine. In India, we have all forms of resistance. We have multiple drug resistance. I'm talking specifically about tuberculosis only at this moment, okay? We have multiple drug resistance. Then there are other types more severe than that, extensive drug resistance. What are these types? These depend on how many drugs are now ineffective. Okay, how many drugs are now ineffective? Based on that, different types of resistance would be there. And you will read about this in the newspaper. So, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to shift to more, or you can say shift to a different drug. Okay, shift to a different medicine. That's our only option. In India, what is happening is we are not able to identify if somebody has a drug resistance. In case of tuberculosis, why the number of cases are increasing, or why we have the highest number of multiple drug resistant tuberculosis in India is because we are not able to detect. We don't have that equipment at the village level to detect that if somebody has resistance. So because we cannot detect, we've done a sputum test, we've analyzed, okay, this person has Mycobacterium tuberculosis, he has TB, but we do not know after if some point of time if he becomes resistant. And the initial medicine which was prescribed to him, that is continued. And the person is taking that medicine maybe for years, but is not being cured. Why? Because he is resistant to that medicine and we have not been able to find that out. So now when this person is spreading the disease to another person, because this drug resistance is a property of the bacteria, your bacteria are drug resistant. So when this person is spreading the disease to the second person, that person also has drug resistant tuberculosis now. Okay, and that person also is again given that first line of drug only. But he does not have that first line of tuberculosis. He has a resistant type of tuberculosis bacteria in his body. Right? Because we cannot identify, we cannot cure. And something which is a curable disease is manifesting as a very complex problem for us. And the more severe the resistance, the more expensive the drugs also, because those drugs are new, they are lesser known, they are expensive, they are not easily available. Right? So what the government has done is, for tuberculosis, they have started a policy, you might have heard about that, which is called DOTS. Okay. So in DOTS, this idea is that direct observation is supposed to be done. So there's going to be a health worker, okay, an ASHA worker, for instance, who is going to make it a point that all the people in her region who have tuberculosis, they will eat their medicine every day. And she has to, or he has to directly observe that. Okay. How? They are going to make it a point that the person eats the medicine in front of them. Right? That is the program. I want you to read about the National Tuberculosis Control Program. Okay, just go through what are the aspects. This is important. Okay, this is also something which is news. This is one of the very prominent health programs of India, and you'll also get an idea about how many people are suffering from this disease. And this is going to be very regularly seen in your current affairs also. Okay. I'm going to make you write a few lines on antibiotic resistance, but what I would like to do here is, instead of using the word antibiotic resistance, because I've tried to explain this to you in a more holistic manner, we will use the word antimicrobial resistance. So this now becomes generic. Okay. This will include everything, antibiotic, pesticide, antiviral, everything will come under this term, antimicrobial resistance. Okay. Let's write a few lines and then I'll take your questions. I think I already have a question on my screen. I'll take that. Please write down. The ability of a microorganism, like bacteria, virus, or some other pathogen, to stop an antimicrobial like antibiotic, antiviral, antimalarial, etc. Antibiotic, antiviral, antimalarial, etc. from working against it. Standard treatments become ineffective. The infections persist. And may spread to others. It can occur naturally. Or by the misuse of misuse of drug therapies, misuse of drug therapies in terms of their dosage, frequency, in terms of their dosage, frequency, and duration. Dosage, frequency, and duration. Okay? Okay, all right. So Nidhi is asking, is antibiotic resistance phenomena restricted to bacterial, or is it true for other pathogen diseases like viruses? Okay, Nidhi. See, if we are using resistance concept, then we will use the word antimicrobial resistance like we have just written. If we are using the word antibiotic, okay, wherever we are using the word antibiotic, antibiotic means bacteria only. Antibiotic is that medicine which is supposed to kill your bacteria. Okay, but if you're just talking about the concept or the phenomena as the word you've used, the phenomena will be applicable to all other types of medicines also. Okay, all right. So with this, there is one UPSC question also. This is a 2019 question. I want you to solve this, right? This question which has been asked about multiple drug resistance. So it's a generic question, but it tests a lot of your concepts. So let's see how many of you can get this correct. Please send me the answer. Okay, so I have one answer which says C. Okay, Ramya says B, Vishwanath says B, Robin says B. Sana also says B. Okay. Okay. Ajinkya says D. Okay, different answer. Pratiksha says B. Shalini says C. Chaitanya says B. Samreen says D. Okay. Let's see. In which of the following are the reasons for occurrence of multi-drug resistance in microbial pathogens in India? First statement says genetic predisposition of some people. The second one says taking incorrect doses of antibiotics to cure the disease. This should be clear to all of you. Okay, there should be no controversy in option 2. We'll talk about the first one later. So we want 2 in the answer, we eliminate C. So C is definitely not the answer. The next one. using antibiotics in livestock farming. Now, what exactly is livestock farming? All your animals, right? The concept of animal husbandry has been picked up. So, all the livestock which are there, right? I told you about livestock being your food and antibiotics reaching you. So, use of antibiotics in livestock farming, this is also correct. You might have also seen people who buy non-vegetarian food. There are a lot of companies who are actually branding them as, no antibiotics. No antibiotics use. This is like their commercial statement which is there. So you might have come across something like this. This is also correct. So we want 3 also in our answer. So A is also not the answer. Now we left with 2 options. And this has automatically eliminated your first statement. Why I always try to solve questions in a stepwise manner for you is, sometimes which seems confusing might not be needed. We don't need the first statement. You don't need to know about this, because these 2 are the simple statements. If you know this, you have come to the answer. Now the determining factor is your option number 4. Multiple chronic disease in some people and genetic disposition of some people. These are the 2 statements. Let's go further into this one aspect. Just think about this fact. We are saying that the bacteria or the virus or the pathogen that is becoming resistant. It is a property of that microbial agent. It is the property of that microorganism. This has nothing to do with the person per se, right? It's not something your body is doing to the bacteria. Your body is not doing anything to the bacteria. The bacteria are acquiring this property. So, you might have chronic multiple diseases, that doesn't make a difference. There might be some genetic predisposition. It has absolute no link with this microbial resistance. You have to remember it is a property of the microbial agent that it is now not being affected by a drug which is given. So first and fourth both are incorrect. This is not something which is linked with people or their conditions, right? Genetic predisposition, there cannot be something, you are not genetically prone to be resistant to a drug. That's not how it is working, right? Because drugs are as such artificial things, so your body cannot genetically be immune to that or resistant to that. As far as multiple chronic diseases are concerned, now there was a lot of debate in this option, right? When we were preparing, now UPSC answer key is there, we are very sure of the answer, right? But when we were preparing answer key, so this was a point of discussion. Then what about people who have diseases? They might have diseases. Chronic, the word chronic means that there are long-standing diseases. Long-term diseases, like somebody has asthma for many, many years. So it is a chronic disease, right? Or somebody has bronchitis existing for over a decade. There is a possibility it becomes a chronic disease. Most of our chronic diseases are not infectious diseases. Okay? Like you have diabetes, it's a long-term disease, it would be there. It is not something which is caused by a pathogen. Right? Or you have a chronic liver disease, some liver dysfunction is there. So most of the chronic diseases, they are first of all not linked with pathogens. The other term which is there is acute. Acute is short-term diseases, right? And these are usually more severe diseases. Why they are more severe? Because of the action of a particular agent, usually which is the pathogen. Like you have an acute attack of maybe COVID. It's an acute form. You have high fever maybe, right? Or you have shortness of breath for some time. But it's not that you can have COVID infection for, 3 years. That's not going to happen. So acute diseases are mainly the communicable diseases, and chronic are the long-standing diseases. This has nothing to do with the question. Just because the word is there, I'm explaining it to you, right? You might have multiple diseases, but that does nothing to your microorganism because it is their property and not your property. So the answer would be B, 2 and 3 only. B, 2 and 3 only. is the answer. And I'm actually glad there are a lot of B's on my board and on my screen. So that's a good thing. So that just goes on to show that yes, you have understood the concept. I'm glad. Good. We come to the next group of diseases, which is the protozoan diseases. So there was this group of organisms which we studied while doing our 5 kingdoms. Right? Kingdom Protista, remember this? What were these? They are eukaryotic and they are unicellular. So these are a few examples of diseases of organisms of this group. They are also known as protozoa. The other word which we can use is protozoa. The diseases, we study the example of amoeba. So amoebiasis, giardia is another organism, another protozoa, giardiasis, and malaria. We're going to talk about malaria after this. Just write down this example. Okay, Muskan is asking that in that diagram, the red and white, wahi rakhna, screen pe rakhna, are the antibiotic? Yes. Just give me a minute. Yes, the red and white part is the antibiotic, Muskan. Yes, it's absolutely right. And you can actually download this also. It's uploaded on your portal. So if you want to see it with more clarity, you can download and see this. Okay? Okay. So to understand malaria we are going to discuss now. But to understand that, we need another concept, which is vector. Okay? So we're going to be focusing on the underlying concepts. There are a lot of them here, and we have to understand what each of these terms means. So in India, we have a national vector-borne diseases program. Okay, this is important. Vector-borne diseases are typically found in the tropical and subtropical countries because vectors are these mosquitoes. As you can see on my screen, there's a cockroach and there is a mosquito. So because they have favorable conditions to grow in tropical countries, in subtropical countries, because of favorable temperature and humidity conditions, so vectors are found. Now what exactly is a vector? Right? You can see the mosquito, but what is the meaning? Any disease which is spreading, you might be knowing that disease is spread through mosquito bites. Your dengue, chikungunya, Zika, all of these diseases, they can spread through mosquito bites. Right? What exactly is the mosquito doing? The mosquito is not the reason for causing the disease. There is a pathogen involved, but that pathogen is with this vector. Now there are two ways. The first one is a mechanical vector. The second is a biological vector. So basically, there is a pathogen and the vector is the carrier of that pathogen. Okay, it is something which is carrying the pathogen. How is that happening? Imagine a cockroach. The cockroach is going around many places. The body of this cockroach it has a very complicated body. So it has wings, it has legs, and the whole body. So that can carry different pathogens. There can be bacteria, there can be virus, there can be some worms. Any of these could be present. And they will all attach to the body, attach to its surface. Then this cockroach can come in contact with your food and leave those pathogens there. It leaves those pathogens there, you consume that, and again, you can get a disease. I'm taking you to one more set of advertisements. See, we are doing so much of our learning through advertisements. Maybe other than, the technical videos which I show, I should start showing some videos of advertisements also. That would be nice. I'm just hoping you would have already seen them and you would remember. So there's this advertisement, again a very common type of ad. Different brands are copying that same idea, that there's a child which is sick and the mother is like very tense and she's like, I take care of the child, I don't know why he keeps falling sick again. And then there's a doctor who says that the problem might not be you. The problem might be those cockroaches which come out at night. And then again, back to graphics, cockroaches are coming out of pipes at night and then they're walking over the plates and your cutlery and everything, and they are becoming sources of infection. How? Because their body is a mechanical vector. It has different pathogens attached to the surface of its body. Okay, so cockroach is doing no damage. It's not the cockroach which is sending in some poisonous things, but it is the pathogens which are attached to the body of these vectors. Okay, cockroach, and this concept, when pathogens are attached to the surface, we say this is a mechanical vector. The second type, the mosquito. This is now a biological vector. What do we mean by biological vector? This is that form in which you get the disease from the bite. Okay, you get the disease from the bite. I'll give you 3 diseases. Dengue, then you have chikungunya, and then you have Zika. Okay, all of these 3 diseases are viral diseases. So we have a dengue virus, we have a chikungunya virus, we have a Zika virus, right? But how they are spreading? They are spreading through a mosquito. Okay, this is the pathogen. Pathogen is a virus and there is a vector. For these 3, there is a common vector which is called Aedes mosquito. And Aedes mosquito is a biological vector. What does this Aedes mosquito do? There is a person who is suffering from dengue. Okay, Aedes mosquito goes and bites that person. From the blood of that person, it picks up the dengue virus. Right? Then what it will do? It will go and bite another person. And in this person's body, it is going to inject the dengue virus, which it has already picked up from the infected person. So nothing to do with the mosquito. It is not doing anything to help in causing of the disease. It is only the carrier. Okay, it's not the pathogen. The pathogen is the virus, but it is carrying the pathogen in its body. So when it is carrying it inside its body, it becomes a biological vector. All right. A mechanical vector carries pathogens on its surface, spreads through contact. A biological vector carries a pathogen inside its body. Okay? So let's write this down. We'll write this down, then I have one question being asked by Lakshya. I'll get to that question. Vector. Vectors are organisms. Vectors are organisms that do not cause the disease itself, but which spreads the infection by taking pathogens from one organism to another. From one organism to another. Mechanical vectors carry pathogens on the surface of their bodies, and transmit via physical contact. Biological vectors spreads the pathogen by carrying them within their bodies. Okay. And you can write down the example of this Aedes mosquito. Okay. Please remember this thing, that the relationship between a vector and a pathogen is fixed, right? Dengue virus will Dengue virus will be transmitted only by Aedes mosquito. It is not that any mosquito will come and it will spread dengue. No, the relationship is specific. Aedes mosquito will spread these diseases. It's not, malaria is also spread by mosquito, but that is a different mosquito. We're just now going to talk about it, right? Not Aedes mosquito. Relationship, which pathogen can survive and be transferred by which pathogen, which vector can transfer which pathogen, that is fixed. Okay, that is fixed. And also please remember this point broadly, that vector will always be a mosquito. Okay, vector is going to be a mosquito which is going to be transmitting, and it is not the pathogen. The pathogen will be different. Okay? Okay, so Lakshya is saying, if somebody has multiple chronic diseases but is taking an overdose of antibacterial drugs, then can there be resistance? So Lakshya, there are 2-3 points which negate the statement. The first one, chronic diseases are mostly not communicable diseases. Okay, they are non-communicable diseases, right? Infections usually occur in acute states. So it is not a possibility that a person might have 5 kind of chronic bacterial infections for which it has to be given, for which the person has to be given 5 different types of antibiotics. That is not the case. Chronic diseases normally are non-communicable in nature, so it is not going to be related to antibiotic resistance, because antibiotics have not been prescribed to this person who has multiple chronic diseases. The kind of drugs which this person is given, that is different. Different kinds of drugs are there. Okay, that is one point. The second thing is, even if we say that, okay, maybe antibiotics are also given to this person, then also as far as the misuse of that treatment, because that treatment would then be charted accordingly. So even if the number of drugs are more, but the treatment is adhered to properly in terms of dosage, in terms of how long it has to be given, so there will not be a problem of resistance. Okay? All right. Let's talk about malaria now. Malaria coming again, like I told you, more popular disease of the tropical countries because of suitable temperature and humidity conditions. With climate change, now what is happening? Climate change is there, global warming is there, and even areas beyond the subtropical belt, they are experiencing high rise of temperature. Okay, they're experiencing not a rise of temperature, and because of this, we now see some of these tropical diseases being transmitted in those areas. Because the vector, this is a vector-borne disease, the vectors can survive in those areas which now have temperature conditions suitable for their growth. So global warming can be associated, I mean, one of the things which when you read about the fact that what are the implications of global warming, this could be one of the things that new diseases are spreading to newer areas. It's just an additional point which I thought I could raise here. Let's talk about malaria. Again, we are number one in this disease. India is leading in the number of people suffering from malaria every year. The pathogen here is called Plasmodium. It is a protozoa. The two main commonly known types of Plasmodium, one is Plasmodium vivax and falciparum. There can be new strains also, new types of Plasmodium also, and malaria as of now is in news these days because in some parts of the world some new types of malaria other than these two commonly known pathogens are being found. So that is a possibility, you might read about that. But most commonly these are the two. There is a vector involved, it is a vector-borne disease. What is the name of the vector? Female Anopheles mosquito. Okay. Female Anopheles mosquito is the vector which is carrying this Plasmodium. So Plasmodium will go and survive only in Anopheles. If it was Aedes, it would not have survived. Or dengue will not survive in Anopheles. The relationship I told you is fixed. Okay? So what is the process? There is an infected person, the cycle goes on, right? Through centuries the cycle will keep going on. It will continue. And infections, that is why they persist year after year. We will talk about the cycle of malaria or Plasmodium. Remember this thing that all different vector-borne diseases, they will have different kinds of cycle. We are talking only about malaria. So, there is an infected person. This person is being bitten by female Anopheles mosquito. Please keep noting this down. Right? Okay, then it goes and bites an originally uninfected person. And when it bites this person also has Plasmodium. Plasmodium in the blood. With the bite of female Anopheles, the Plasmodium goes into the blood of this uninfected person. Right? After this, what happens is, Plasmodium, with being in blood, it can go to any part of the body. It goes into the liver first. And in liver, it starts growing. Or growth of Plasmodium. The Plasmodium starts growing once it reaches the liver. Okay. After this, it goes into the red blood cells. Red blood cells may, it starts multiplication or reproduction, whatever you want to call it. It increases in number. Multiplication of plasmodium. Right? And this multiplication or increase in number is so severe. Okay. Plasmodium start increasing in number and they increase so enormously that RBCs, they burst. The RBCs will burst because of increasing number of plasmodium. And when RBCs burst, what happens is plasmodium is again released in the blood. Plasmodium is released in blood and a large number of plasmodium are released in blood. This is the time when the person has high fever. Okay. The moment this enormous number of plasmodium they're released in blood, the patient has high fever. So again this whole cycle will continue. This person will be bit by another Anopheles mosquito, same cycle, and in this person's body also this cycle continues. Until plasmodium is present, this will keep going on, right? So this high fever is there, but it is intermittent. What do I mean by intermittent? That means it's not that continuously throughout the day the person is having 102 fever. No. It is intermittent. It goes on as this cyclic activity is taking place. The moment the RBCs will burst, that is the time when the person will have fever and not continuously. So the characteristic of malaria, like for tuberculosis we had written that this in tuberculosis there is afternoon fever. In malaria it can be at any time, but it is intermittent. It's not throughout the day. Right? And we have anti-malarial drugs, anti-malarial medicines which are available. Hydroxychloroquine, which we are also experimenting with COVID. Maybe you've read about it. So chloroquine or quinine was a natural drug which was given against malaria to kill plasmodium. It is effective most of the times, but again resistance is developing because this is a disease which is continuously affecting people. Every year there is outbreak of malaria during that season when there is an increased number of vector population during your rains, the mosquito season. So there is outbreak of all these kinds of vector-borne diseases. Dengue is there, chikungunya is there, malaria is there, because the vectors are growing. Fine. So you need to know what is the pathogen, you need to know the name of the vector, and you need to know how malaria cycle is going on. Okay. There is a challenge of resistance in this case also, but if the medicine is effective, it is a curable disease. Okay. Let me take your questions, then we'll take a break. Shubham is saying, do viruses also affect the vector body? No. There is not much of an impact of the virus or the pathogen for that matter on the vector because it's just acting as a carrying agent. And Shubham has also asked me why it is not affecting the vector. It is not affecting the vector because it is not growing or multiplying inside the body of the vector. Okay, so when it's not growing or multiplying, that means it's not taking any nutrition from the vector. So it is not having any impact. It will have an impact when it is affecting your system, when it is taking away from the nutrition which you have, when it is damaging some body system. But it is not there doing anything. It's just lying there waiting to be transferred to its original host. Okay? Okay, so Vishwanath has now asked, that if there's a chronic disease, wouldn't the repetition of the same medicine lead to development of resistance? Yes, Vishwanath, there are other different types of resistances also which can be developed, but it is not the antimicrobial resistance. Different kind of medications can also have their resistance. That is very much possible. That's why for any kind of treatment which people are undergoing, it's always advisable to do that under a trained specialist, medical practitioner who can alter, seeing your responses, can alter any line of treatment or medication when it is needed. But yes, resistance for those medicines is also possible. How will be the first infected person? So yeah, Kriti has asked me this question I come across in every class, कि सबसे पहले मलेरिया किसको हुआ था? कौन सी सदी में, कौन से युग में? When was the first person infected by a pathogen? How did Plasmodium first go inside Anopheles? So there is no appropriate explanation for this. There is no appropriate data known to support this. The origin of most of the diseases or disease-causing organisms we cannot point out to very exactly. What is most simply understood by us today is that the evolution of pathogens, okay, the evolution or coming up of pathogens is such that they develop according to their host. Okay, the word I'm using is host. Host is somebody which is being infected by a pathogen. Okay? So they are developing along with the host. So as human beings developed, different pathogens which are going to be causing diseases to them or which are going to live inside them, they also developed. So it is kind of, the idea is that a parallel evolution has taken place, right? And after this, what keeps happening is newer forms develop, okay? Newer viruses would develop. How? That same virus which is originally there, or that same microorganism which is there, it can change form. There can be mutations. There can be genetic changes in those, leading to coming up of newer species, hence newer diseases. Like coronavirus, if I explain to you, this COVID-19 virus, this is a type of coronavirus, but we've had other coronaviruses also. We had diseases like SARS and MERS, which are caused by a similar type of virus. So the main group is same, but it changed slightly and developed the same property of infecting human beings and continued. But it became a new virus because it changed its structure through different generations. So you can basically just remember this, that they develop along with the development of an individual, and it is kind of a continuous cyclic process which is taking place, and we cannot exactly pinpoint to the first thing or beginning of a disease, because that's going to be like millions of years ago. Okay? If you have to ask questions, you're supposed to ask questions in your doubt section so that I can get across to them. How can overexposure of a drug lead to drug resistance against that disease? Shouldn't it kill the bacteria if it enters the body? See, you need clarity on this, Shagun. Drug resistance is not against that disease. Drug resistance is the property of the bacteria. The bacteria have become drug resistance. Okay. Overstimulation can desensitize them. Okay. I'll give you one. Okay, let me try something here. Let's see. So there is a population of bacteria, okay? There is a population of bacteria in which suppose there are 100 bacteria, okay? And you've used a medicine, right? So most of these are killed, okay, like 80 are killed, 20 are left, right? These 20 are left, they are not causing the disease, but they are there, right? Now you are giving a medicine again and again and again, right? These 20, right, they're not directly coming, I mean, they are not active, so they do not need to be destroyed in that sense, but they are getting exposed to the medicine. So maybe every time the medicine is coming, maybe half of them are getting eliminated. But the other half, they are now being exposed to this medicine, so they are also learning. They are also learning, they are developing some changes, and they are getting an idea how to survive against this medicine. There might be some changes, there might be some mutations, right? And every time you are giving them an idea, it's like you are taking away their ability, which would be the ability of the surprise element which you would be giving them. So it gives every generation, because it's not completely being eliminated, something is left every time. So it is giving them a chance to recover from it and learn from it and maybe develop mechanisms to combat this. At the end, suppose these 5 are left. These 5 have now survived this antibiotic, and these 5 have now a mechanism which makes them resistant. Okay, which makes them resistant to the drug. These 5 now, because they are more powerful, because this medicine is not effective against them, they will be able to reproduce, and this 5 can become 500 even after the medicine is there. Because through multiple exposures, you can maybe simply understand that they have become desensitized. Or you can understand this as they have developed mutations, which is now helping them become ineffective to this medicine. Okay? I hope I could make you understand. Right? Okay. On this, what we are going to do is, we are going to take a break here, right? And we'll continue after the break with our next set of diseases. Okay, just wait, hang on. अभी चल बंद तो नहीं किया ना आपने? हाँ, ठीक है. Okay, so Nishant has asked me a question. How would the first person of malaria got infected in case of absence of any previous patient, since an infected person is a source of the same spread? So I guess I explained this in a lot of detail just a few minutes ago. So Nishant, I hope I have answered your question in terms of the evolution of different diseases which I elaborated upon. Just a few minutes. If you've not heard it, so I'm going to give you a break and you just reverse the video a few minutes, and that's what I've been talking about. Okay? All right.
Often we hear about antibiotic resistance, but what does this mean? Bacteria are single-cell organisms. Disease-causing bacteria trigger illnesses such as throat infection or some ear infections. Antibiotics are drugs used for fighting infections caused by bacteria. They reduce illnesses and even death from infectious diseases. However, although antibiotics have many beneficial effects, their overuse has contributed to the problem of antibiotic resistance. Antibiotic resistance occurs when bacteria change so that the effectiveness of antibiotics is reduced or eliminated. The bacteria survive and continue to increase in number, causing more damage. Bacteria can do this through several mechanisms. Some bacteria develop the ability to neutralize the antibiotics. Others can pump the antibiotics out of the cell, or even change the antibiotic attack site so it cannot affect the function of the bacteria. Exposure to antibiotics, therefore, provides selective pressure, which makes the surviving bacteria more likely to be resistant and hence continue to proliferate. The resistance is usually coded by DNA and can be transferred to other bacteria. Antibiotic resistance is a global problem for all of us. Some infections cannot be cured today with our current antibiotics. Therefore, 19 member states have joined forces in the Joint Program Initiative on Antimicrobial Resistance. The joint program provides the platform for initiating and coordinating the actions needed to reduce antibiotic resistance.
So welcome back. Now this video which you just saw, it's talking about a joint programming initiative for antimicrobial resistance. So India is also a member of this organization. Okay. In terms of, I think this one question which a lot of you are struggling with still, that how did the first person become infected? I want to summarize this again, that there is no perfect explanation for how the first person was infected. Okay, what you have to simply understand is, as a particular organism develops, right, like as human beings developed, along with them, all the pathogens which infected, thank you, which infected them, they also developed along with human beings. Okay, it is not that first human beings come and they will live for a few years and after that pathogens will start coming into being. That's not how it happened. They developed simultaneously. It is a process of evolution. Okay, so we cannot go and find out the first person. We have to just understand this on a very broader level, that these organisms, these pathogens, they came into being along with the human beings. As human beings evolved, so did the pathogens. And after this, after these millions of years, they keep changing forms. That's what is happening. They go and they undergo some mutation, they undergo certain changes and they become different forms, newer forms. So new diseases keep getting discovered, right? But there is a continuous cycle of this whole thing going on, so we cannot point out towards the first person. Okay? It is, you have to understand this as a process of evolution. Right? As human beings evolved, everything that depends on human beings, all the pathogens, they also evolved along with those. And this has been going on for millions of years now. Fine? All right. We're going to go to the next set of diseases. Here we do not have any particular concept which we have to discuss. So you can just write down the examples. Fungal diseases. We have candidiasis, ringworm and athlete's foot. Most of these diseases are there in, the growth of fungus is there when there are damp conditions, the conditions of moisture. Okay. Candidiasis is a disease which is going to be involving your tongue. So on the surface of your tongue, you might have observed that there is this whitish coat which is developed at times. Right? Whitish layer is there. So that is actually a fungus which is, if you want to write, you can write down Candida alba. So there is this fungus called Candida alba that is naturally found in your mouth and it is there on your tongue. So when on the surface of your tongue there are some food substrates which are there, or there is a very thick pile of this fungus which is accumulated, so it can manifest as a disease, okay, which can lead to swelling of your tongue and pain would be there and other different symptoms would be there. So your takeaway from this should be that along with brushing your teeth, scraping of the tongue and buying a tongue cleaner is also one exercise you must practice. Okay? Then you have ringworm. Ringworm again, advertisements, products, all your daad, khad, khujli which is there, that is ringworm. So you have products like itch guard, ring guard, Betex. All of them are supposed to treat this fungal infection, ringworm. Also remember, ringworm is not a worm. It is a fungus. Okay, sometimes we get confused. So just remember this. Then athlete's foot. This is also a disease. Usually athletes, which they sweat more, they have dampness in their socks, so they can develop this disease, athlete's foot. All right. Going ahead, helminthic diseases. So this is another group of organisms. Again, we do not need a lot of details here. So this is a group of helminthic diseases. This is a group, you have heard about roundworms and flatworms. So these are those different worms which are there, okay, and these worms can cause certain diseases. You have escheriasis, teniasis, lymphatic filariasis, right? These are the diseases. We can add a few more, you might have heard about hookworm. Hookworm infection is there, right? So our government has a national program for this also, National Helminthic Disease Program, to combat these diseases. In common terminology, you have heard people saying कि इसके पेट में कीड़े हैं, right? सुना है आपने कि पेट में कीड़े हैं? पेट में कीड़े, that means there are worms in somebody's stomach. Now what are those कीड़े? Those कीड़े are these helminthic worms, the roundworms and the flatworms. Okay. Usually they are more commonly targeting children, but it's not a limitation. They can target adults also. You might be familiar with that one friend of yours, or maybe some of you also do that, who can eat like 50 puris and still not on a regular basis and not be putting on any weight or anything. So what is wrong with that person is that he probably has some of these worms in his body. So those kida in your stomach, they are interfering with the digestion process. Okay, the kida is interfering with the digestion process. So the person is always hungry. That is one thing. And the person is not metabolizing, or it is not adding anywhere to his body. He's just eating, and the kida, the worm is actually eating or digesting everything, and no nutrient value is going to this person. In children, this becomes a severe problem, right? Because for you, the situation or the case might be just of, putting on weight. But for a child, it is his growth which is hampered. It's very commonly seen in children because of usually the insanitary conditions of, the way they eat and all of that. So they are commonly infected by this. Food is one of the very main sources of these kind of infections. So what happens in children is that because of the interference in their digestive system, or because the whole thing is not being, the food is not being processed properly, what is happening is that it is interfering with their growth. Okay, it is interfering with their growth. They are going to have stunted growth. They will not grow in height. Their body will not develop normally if they have these worm infections. So they have to be treated. We have medicines for this very easily, and these medicines can be given as a precautionary measure also. The process we call as deworming. Deworming. What is happening in this deworming? You're given a medicine, and all the worms which are there in your body, they will be removed with that one dose. And for the program which is there, the Helminthic program, and we have a national deworming day also which is celebrated. Okay, there's a national deworming day, and what happens on that one day, all the children of all the schools are supposed to take this one medicine, right? The deworming medicine which is there, they're supposed to take it, and every year we do this practice. So in order to protect our children from having improper growth. Okay, so worms Two kinds of worms, flatworms, roundworms, deworming, right? And all of you also, or I should say all of us, particularly those people who are eating from outside and there is a challenge with the hygiene of the food which we are taking, for those people, it is important that every 6 months they get a deworming done. Okay, there's a medicine, albendazole, which you all can take it, and every 6 months this deworming process should be there. More critical in cases of children. Okay. Queries. Why pathogen isn't killing mosquito? Vivek, this question has also been asked. I'll again tell you. Pathogen is not killing the mosquito because pathogen is not growing inside the body of the mosquito. Because it is not growing, it is not dividing, it is not reproducing, no life processes are going on, so no damage to mosquito. That is why mosquito is the vector. It is only the carrying agent. The pathogen is waiting. The moment it will go inside the host, that is the time it will start growing, that is the time it will start reproducing, and the damage will be to the host, not to the vector. And that is one of the things which qualifies something as the vector, that the vector does not get a disease. Right? The person will get the disease, the host. All right, next. Yes, an acute disease, because of its resistive nature, if it becomes long-standing, can it become chronic? Yes. An acute disease, if it's not cured, if it has resistance, it's long-term, it can become chronic. Okay, okay, Nidhi. We go on next to the viral diseases. Okay, the viral diseases. Now, virus, the special property of virus is the virus has its own genetic material. The virus genetic material can be DNA or RNA, any of this, right? COVID-19 virus, coronavirus has RNA as its genetic material. Hepatitis virus has DNA as its main genetic material. We discussed what is genetic material in the last class. So, the virus will have its genetic material. It has its set of proteins. But what happens? Lacks enzymes. Lacks enzymes. Enzymes for production of energy, for doing the different life processes. So the virus needs your enzymes or needs the enzymes of the host. In whichever person the virus goes, that person's body is going to be giving the enzymes which will help the virus grow. That is how virus damages your systems. Okay. In itself, this is a special situation, the special condition why we did not classify virus in any of those 5 kingdoms. Because virus cannot grow on its own as an entity. Okay, it cannot grow on its own. It is equivalent to a non-living thing. It needs a living system to survive. It needs a living system to survive. Otherwise, it cannot exist. On its own, it has no role. It will not grow. It will not divide. It will not reproduce. It is just there. As good as a dust particle. It is only when it goes inside a living organism, it can be a plant, it can be a bacteria, it can be a fungus, it can be an animal, it can grow and survive in any of these living organisms, but it needs a living system to grow. Okay? It will need a living system, it will need enzymes, only then it will grow. Okay? So, virus and viral diseases are very important in terms of questions. Okay, UPSC, if we follow the trend of the last few years, every year there's been a question on some virus. Okay, the virus can be different. So they asked Zika, they asked dengue, they asked bird flu. Every virus, they keep asking. Why virus? Because these are the new diseases which are being discovered, they are viral diseases. Right? COVID-19, of course. But we have newer diseases, viral diseases which are coming, hence it stays in news. The special property of virus is that there is no exact treatment for this virus. That is the biggest challenge. You can write these examples. There are many, many viral diseases. You can write any number of examples on your own also. This is just for your reference. Hepatitis, chickenpox, polio, dengue. Dengue we've studied, vector-borne disease, right? Different mechanisms for all these diseases. There are antiviral drugs, okay? Antiviral drugs are there, right? But they are not as effective as the antibiotic drugs. When I say we are using an antibiotic, it is a definite thing. We are using an antibiotic, that means the bacteria will be killed, right? But antiviral drugs are not available against all viruses. They are not very effective also, that we can say that, okay, it is a definite thing that it's going to be implemented. That is not the case, right? So how do we manage these viral diseases? This is a very important aspect. The management of these viral diseases is such that they are going to be managed just by managing the symptoms. Okay, please understand this very carefully. Like, I'll give you the example of COVID-19. We have COVID-19 viral infection, right? And some of you might have faced that also, or might have some relatives who have suffered from COVID. You know that there is no exact treatment. What is the doctor giving you? The doctor is giving you paracetamol. The doctor is giving you Dolo or any other type of medicine which is supposed to lower your fever. Okay, it's giving you, the doctor is giving you a medicine to lower the fever, but not to destroy the virus. Because we do not have very effective antiviral drugs, and very commonly we do not have antiviral drugs. We've not been able to develop that. So what we are doing is, we are just treating the symptoms. If somebody has body pains, we give a medicine for body pain. If somebody has diarrhea, we give a medicine for diarrhea. If you have fever, we'll give you a medicine for fever. But we cannot treat the virus. We cannot destroy the virus as such. Okay, this is one property of viral diseases, that we have to wait for the medicine. We have to, wait for the body to automatically heal it. Okay, to automatically treat it, and we will in that time treat the symptoms which are of discomfort to the person. So that is why when you have a viral disease, even a disease like, dengue, chikungunya, viral diseases. So what are the treatments which are there? Nariyal pani piyo. Okay? Now nariyal pani is doing nothing to the virus. Right? It is just that you maintain a clear state of your body. You maintain fluid level. You take better fluids. You take vitamin C. You take zinc. We studied these things as agents which are helping in the immunity of the body. Right? We are not hitting on the virus, but we are allowing the body to the natural immunity of the body to deal with the virus, and till that time we are treating any symptoms. In COVID also, the people who have more severe symptoms, what is happening to them? They are hospitalized. What is the problem? Respiratory problem. They can't breathe. They are put on ventilators. What is the ventilator doing? It's doing nothing to the virus. It is just helping you breathe. It is increasing your breathing capacity. That's what is happening. But direct action on treatment is not as such there. In more complex diseases, more severe diseases like AIDS, we do have a line of antiviral drugs. But these antiviral drugs are only controlling the growth of those viruses. They're not eliminating them permanently. So if you are giving somebody an AIDS treatment, then that treatment goes on for life. Okay, you cannot exactly say that the exact cure of AIDS or any would not be there. Right? So it would continue. We'll talk about how AIDS is working also. One more aspect which you remember, is that the body in its own natural ways can produce certain things to destroy this virus. We cannot do this, but body can produce certain things. So they are interferons, okay, or cytokines. These are a few things which your body produces to fight against viruses, right? And you might have heard about cytokine in case of COVID infection in particular. Sometimes this is in excess. There's too much of it. So that further creates a complication. This is called, that condition can be called cytokine storm. This can be in excess. It can damage the whole body also. That's a severe condition, but otherwise naturally interferons and cytokines are supposed to provide protection to those cells which are still not infected by virus. So if one cell is infected by virus, it will produce these things and give protection to the other cells, right? So the body is naturally going to fight these viruses in its own ways, and we are going to provide supportive treatment, right? The treatment which we give or which we are trying to devise, which we devised for COVID also, is through vaccination, right? Which is preventive. Vaccination works before you get the disease. But curative, right? You should understand these two words, preventive and curative. Curative means after the infection has taken place. Preventive, before. So we can develop a vaccination which is a preventive form of treatment, but curative treatment as such is not there, or not very effective. All right. Let's see the question. Then I'll talk further about the viral diseases. Please keep noting down whatever is there on the board. We're not really going to be having any dictations or anything like that. Okay. So Yash, bird flu is a viral disease. Okay. Bird flu is very much a viral disease. And all your flus, flu is basically influenza type of viruses, are different types, all of them are viral diseases. And Yash is asking, how is a viral disease different from a protozoan disease? So Yash, they are different organisms. Virus, now you cannot ask me what is the difference between viral and bacterial disease. Okay, this is not exactly a question. Viral disease means a virus is causing it. And you have also written, give me an example of DNA genetic material. So I have not taught you what is a DNA, and there is nothing like example of DNA genetic material, right? It is an incorrect, illogical statement. Virus structure is different. What is the structure of virus? This is the structure of virus. Virus has a genetic material, virus has proteins, virus lacks enzyme. Virus cannot survive on its own. Virus will survive in the body of another organism. This is virus. What is protozoa? Protozoa is a complete organism. It will survive on its own. Example, amoeba. What type of organism it is? Again, this is a repetition of what we've done. Unicellular, eukaryotic. Eukaryotic organism has genetic material, has membrane-bound cell organelle, has its own enzymes, everything is there, it is a complete organism. So organisms are different. Okay, like there is a sheep and a crocodile, right? So there is no sense of a question that with the help of DNA explain how sheep is different from crocodile, right? They are different organisms, hence disease will be different. Okay, so viral caused by virus, protozoan caused by protozoa. They are different organisms. Bacterial diseases caused by bacteria. Another different type of organism. It is a prokaryote. That is why we studied these different types of organisms first before we came to diseases, right? Fungus, another type, another kingdom, different. Tanvi has asked, what does a cytokine storm do? So basically it is manifested as a fever, that is the first condition, but this fever can become more severe, cause complication in respiration and even death of a person in very severe cases. Okay, Tanvi? This is a part of your current affairs, you're going to read about it, so don't worry. Any particularly with COVID, if there's any concept you think that I might have not elaborated on, that's because I know it's going to come in your current affairs, right? So you're going to read about it, don't feel deprived. Okay, now everybody wants to know about cytokine storm. Cytokine storm I have explained, right? I'll do that again. Cytokines are those substances which are being produced by the infected cells. Cells being infected by the virus. When virus infects some cells, they produce cytokines to provide protection to surrounding cells. Okay, this is the role of cytokines. Sometimes the cytokine production can be in excess. When this cytokine production is in excess, it is called a cytokine storm. Production of cytokines in excess is a cytokine storm, and this can lead to complications like very high fever and in an uncontrolled state, even death of the person. Okay, this is going to be in your current affairs also. So don't worry. Let me talk about one specific viral disease here, right? And that is hepatitis. I want to talk about hepatitis. I also want to talk about AIDS, but I'm going to do that after I teach you immunity. Okay? So globally, AIDS is considered to be one of the more dreadful diseases, but more than AIDS, globally the infectious position of hepatitis is more severe. So hepatitis is more infectious because more number of people are getting it around the world. There are more people suffering from this disease globally. And hepatitis is also important because this year, 2020, your Nobel Prize for medicine and physiology, that was given to the discovery of hepatitis C virus. Okay, we'll talk about what is hepatitis C. First, let me talk to you about the disease. Please keep writing, keep noting down. Hepatitis. Now this is made up of two terms. One is hepatic and then we have itis. Hepatic is the term which is used for the liver. Like I told you today that pulmonary is the term used for lungs. Hepatic is the term used for liver. Okay, hepatic is the term which is used for liver, and itis is the term used for inflammation. Inflammation of the liver is what is hepatitis. Now what is inflammation? Inflammation is a series of symptoms which could be associated with it. So we have redness, we have swelling, we can have pain, increased temperature, and loss of function. So it's not that every time we have inflammation we have all five of these, but we can have one, two, or all five. Anything would be there. It would be categorized as inflammation. So hepatitis is inflammation of the liver. Wherever you get the word itis, you should know this is what we are talking about. Like gingivitis. Gingivitis is inflammation of your gums. Arthritis, inflammation of the joints. Arthritis, I think all of you must have heard, a very common disease, right? So wherever there is itis, it means inflammation. Okay? This is the disease part. Now coming to the virus. There are 5 types of hepatitis viruses. Right? Like I told you, coronavirus can be of different type. We have SARS, we have MERS, we have COVID-19. So hepatitis also, similar thing all these viruses will do. They will cause inflammation of the liver, but there are 5 types. Why are there 5 types? Because their structure is different. Their structure is different, that is why there are 5 types. Okay, they might be infecting in the same way also or in different ways, but still, because their structurally they are different, so we have categorized different types: A, B, C, D and E. So we call them hepatitis A virus, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, D and E. Okay, hepatitis C is the one, its discovery. Okay, discovery, this was identified recently as compared to the rest of the 3. I mean, not recently, but Nobel committee takes a lot of time to recognize discovery which has taken place, and sometimes people have died, so posthumously also they will give you a Nobel Prize. But this year, discovery of hepatitis C has won the Nobel Prize. Okay, Nobel Prize 2020. Again, this is a part of your current affairs. I think this is in the month of October, September or October 2020, where you are going to read about this. Right? I'm just telling you additionally here. Okay. Now, we've not studied what is a vaccine, but still I want to tell you. This hepatitis C is the only one out of these 5 against which no vaccine is available. As of now, we have not been able to develop a vaccine. We will study what is a vaccine in the next class. Here, just remember, hepatitis C has no vaccine against it. We have a vaccine for A, B, D and E. And you might be vaccinated against, if not all, at least I think hepatitis B, all of you must have been vaccinated against. So, all of these have vaccines. Hepatitis C does not have vaccine. Hepatitis C has been awarded, its discovery has been awarded the Nobel Prize this year. So it becomes important. Current affairs mein you'll read about it. Now let me talk about the mode of transmission. How are these transmitting, or how is the disease being caused? It is different in these cases. So you have hepatitis A being spread from food and water. Contamination of food and water. So is hepatitis E. Transmitted through food and water. Okay, transmitted through food and water, both hepatitis A and E. Right? They are different in structure, but their mode of transmission is the same. Fine. Then hepatitis B. This is being spread through body fluids. Spread through body fluids. What would be your body fluids? It could be anything, right? From saliva to your tears, to sweat also, to your sexual fluids. All of these would qualify as body fluids. This is how hepatitis B spreads. Hepatitis C spreads through blood-borne contact. Okay, blood-borne contact is what is going to spread hepatitis C. And hepatitis D has a unique position that it will spread only with hepatitis B. So people who have hepatitis B infection, they also have a chance of getting hepatitis D infection. So if you have B, you can get D. D doesn't like to infect you alone. Okay, so you cannot have hepatitis D infection alone. You will have hepatitis B infection, then there is a possibility. It's not a definite condition कि अगर B है तो D will always be there. No, but there is a possibility. Fine. So you should know this about hepatitis. You should know that all of these have vaccines, C does not. You should know how they are transmitted. And of course, you need to know what is hepatitis. Okay? Take a pause to sink this in. I'm going to bring across one UPSC question, which is on viruses. But I think you have a fair enough idea about viruses and you should be able to solve this question now. Just give it a try. UPSC has asked this question. Okay, so Pranay says it is A. Anand also says it should be A. Chaitanya says A. Gopal says B. Ajinkya says A. Wasim says A. Pratiksha says A. Chalo, let's read the question. So the question has 3 statements and it's asking you which of the following are correct. First one, viruses lack enzymes necessary for the generation of energy. Okay, viruses lack enzyme necessary for the generation of energy. This is correct, right? We need 1 in the answer, so B cannot be the answer. Second, viruses can be cultured in any synthetic medium. Whenever you have extreme words like any, all, never, you have to be very careful before picking up your option. Because mostly the extreme terms caution you towards the fact that this is a distractor for you to go to the wrong answer. Viruses can be cultured, that's very much possible, but it's not that they will be cultured anywhere. We have understood this fact that they lack enzymes necessary for production of energy. Okay? But this means that they need enzymes from somebody else. Right? This somebody else is going to be a living system. So we cannot culture them in any synthetic medium. We need some living components. We need some living components, only then the virus will grow and survive. Right? If you find any of this to be new piece of information, please keep noting them down simultaneously. Viruses cannot be cultured in any synthetic medium. They need some living components to be cultured to grow. Cultured just means that we are going to grow them. Right? We are going to grow them. So we can grow them on our own, but we need some living components because on their own they do not have enzymes. So this makes the second statement incorrect, eliminating our option D. Now we are left with A and C. Third statement says viruses are transmitted from one organism to another by biological vectors only. So this is also incorrect. It's not by biological vectors, also by mechanical. Both biological and mechanical vectors can transmit the viruses. There is not a limitation on this aspect. So C is also incorrect. Answer is A, one only. Answer is A, one only, and a lot of you have this option to be correct, so that's a good thing. Coming to the modes of transmission. So we have completed our infectious diseases. This is just, in a way, you can say a summarization, a recap, whatever you want to call it. And I think this you should be able to deal with on your own also. Let's just write down, these are the different modes of transmissions. Please keep noting them down. I'm going to tell you one example, and I think you should have examples of your own also in this portion. Modes of transmission means how they are spreading. What is the way in which a disease is spreading, right? Let's do this, then we'll take your queries. Air, spreading through air. We can have tuberculosis. So tuberculosis is going to be spread through sneezing, coughing, or we say droplet infection, right? Contact with sputum. That's how tuberculosis will spread. When you have water, water may you can have cholera. Okay, you can have hepatitis A. I'm not sure if I've spelled it correctly. Please check. Hepatitis A. Right? Hepatitis A, hepatitis E. Okay. Then food. Usually food and water, the contamination is together only, right? But still we can have typhoid. We can have amoebiasis. I hope you're writing all this down. Then for soil, we can have hookworm. Hookworm infection. Bare feet, walking bare feet can give you hookworm infection from the soil. Then blood and body fluids. So we have AIDS, right? Direct contact. So a disease like chickenpox or leprosy. Please don't mind my spellings. So a person is suffering from chickenpox, you go in direct contact of that person, you can get chickenpox. Right? Now, I'll come to zoonotic in a while. Vector. Vector, you know, we have too many examples for vector now. Zika, malaria. Right? There can be different types of vectors, right? Like malaria. Malaria is a protozoan disease. It is caused by a protozoa. That is the pathogen, right? Zika is a viral disease. It is caused by a vector, but by a virus. So, being a protozoan or being a viral disease is in terms of its pathogen. Being a vector disease is in terms of its mode of transmission. So, Zika is a viral disease transmitted through a vector, making it a vector-borne disease. Just like tuberculosis is an airborne disease, Zika is a vector-borne disease. Malaria is in terms of pathogen, is a protozoan disease caused by a protozoa, but carried by a vector. So, vector-borne disease, borne by a vector, caused by a protozoa. Typhoid can be a food-borne infection, right? This should be clear in your mind. Now, zoonotic is a disease which is caused by an animal or a bird. When you come in contact with an animal or a bird which is infected, you can get that disease. It is not the same as the vector. Why? Because the vector, your mosquito, it is not suffering from the disease, right? We have made this clear time and again, that it is not the vector which is involved. Aedes mosquito does not have dengue, but an animal or a bird who is causing a disease through zoonotic transmission will be suffering from the disease. Examples. I'll tell you the examples. It will become more clear. Rabies. Rabies is caused by the bite of a rabid animal, a dog, for instance. That dog is also suffering from rabies, and if that dog bites you, you also suffer from rabies. Bird flu, आजकल चल रहा है बहुत. What is it? It's a zoonotic disease. The birds are also dying, and if you get this infection, you will also have bird flu. The bird also has bird flu, you also have bird flu. Zoonotic. Then you have plague. Heard about plague? Bubonic plague, a bubonic plague caused by rats. So the rats also suffer and people also suffer, right? Then there could be other examples, swine flu. You know all these things. Diseases caused by animals or birds, they are called zoonotic. How is it different from the vector? Vector does not have the disease. Animal has the disease. So this is not just a carrier, it is also suffering. Vector is not suffering. Okay, we've said this time and again. Next one, fomite, the last one. This might be a new word for most of you. This is transmission of a disease through non-living things. Transmission of a disease through non-living things. How non-living thing? Like you're coming in contact with the utensils or the handkerchief or towels or clothes of people who are suffering from a particular disease, you can also get the disease, right? Like chicken pox only. If the person who is suffering from chicken pox, if you share these non-living items, maybe the utensils, the other household items which you can share, you will also get chicken pox. Or common cold, for instance, most common example. So non-living things can also transfer disease or act as most mode of transmission of disease. We call this spread as fomite spread. Okay? So this is important. Now let's take your questions. Okay, Anshul says, in hepatitis, the body can turn yellowish in color or not. Is this a symptom or not? Yes, Anshul, you are correct. In hepatitis, there is a situation where there is this yellowish color which is happening, and this condition is called jaundice. You know about jaundice, right? What is jaundice basically? So there is bile. Liver is producing a juice, a fluid which is called bile, right? That bile on breakdown gives us that yellow color. Okay, that bile has agents which give us those yellow color, and when the liver is not functioning properly, the bile is not metabolized, or you can say the bile is not broken down properly, which leads to accumulation of that yellow color. Okay? I hope, Abhishek, no. Okay, sorry, I missed out whose question it was. But I hope it is clear that yes, that yellowish color is because of the fact that this bile is not being used up or metabolized properly. Condition is called jaundice. So hepatitis infection, which is inflammation of liver, it can cause jaundice, which is exhibited as yellow color. So you have yellow color in the eyes, in the cornea of these eyes, this white portion of the eyes, that's where we first see. Are these yellow? Then your nails could be yellow, the skin could be yellow. And I was also asked that is this a symptom? Yes, this is a symptom. yellowishness of the skin would be categorized as a symptom. ठीक है? Next question. Is it possible that one person is suffered by a mechanical vector and later the biological vector can transmit this disease from that person? Ma'am, does this drug resistance can be minimized by higher dosage of drugs? Okay, पहले drug resistance की बात बताती हूँ अभिषेक. Drug resistance हो गया तो कोई there is no option but to change the drug. Dose alteration will not change anything. Okay, if your body is resistant to amoxicillin, you cannot do anything about it. You have to shift to another drug. You have to now maybe start taking azithromycin. This is just an example. If you don't understand the names of this drug, it is fine. You're not supposed to also. But I'll give you the example of morphine and Bagon, which you understand. If morphine is ineffective, even if you give higher amount of morphine, it will not work. ठीक है? आपको morphine से Bagon पे shift होना ही पड़ेगा. You will have to shift to an alternative drug. Dosage will not matter in this case. ठीक है? That's one part of your question. The second thing is कि mechanical vector है वो बाद में biological बन सकता है. अभी इतने hypothetical questions नहीं पूछने. ठीक है? In terms of transmission, what I can simply tell you is कि the transmission is fixed. Anything which is transmitted through biological systems, it will go through biological systems only, right? And anything, because that is the only way it is surviving. Plasmodium, which is surviving in the vector mode, it will survive either inside the body of a vector or inside the body of a human being. Nowhere else. It cannot survive on the surface of the cockroach. Okay, it cannot live there. It lives either inside the body of Anopheles mosquito or inside the body of human beings. Bas, that is it. Okay, there is only one definite host for Plasmodium, that is man. Okay? Okay. So, it is not possible that it will survive mechanically then go into biological system. It will stay inside the vector or the host. That is it. Rajwala says, is flatworm the platyhelminthes and ringworm the aschelminthes? Rajbala, ringworm to मैंने बहुत clearly I have told you. We have written in terms of example. Please turn your pages and look for ringworm in your notebook. Ringworm is a fungus. आपने लिखा है that ringworm is a fungal infection, right? Then why are you trying to put it in helminthic group? It is not in any helminthic group. Okay, flatworm is an helminthic. You are very right. You've used the word platyhelminthes. That is correct. But ringworm is a fungus. It is not a worm. Its name is a misnomer. It's not a worm. It is not an helminthic group. It is a fungus. Look into your notebook. Next question. Does plasmodium get injected at larval stage? If not, then what does it mean that it growth in liver mean? Yes, Smriti, you very rightly point out. We do not use the word larva. Here we use the word sporozoite. Okay, the word is sporozoite which we use. So in this form, in the form of spores, in a, you can say a rudimentary form, not a completely developed form, that's how plasmodium is transmitted, right? And you very rightly point out that's how it will grow. It will grow all to a full adult stage. What is the role of interferon, Sumit? Sumit, interferon also is supposed to protect the additional cells. So if you have a viral cell and there are cells surrounding it, okay, so this is the infected cell, it will release interferon and this interferon will actually provide a coating. Okay, it will provide a coating and this coating will prevent the other cells from being infected by viruses. That's how it works. So we have treatment options in which we give interferons from outside also. Right? That's what happens. Is bird flu a zoonotic disease? Is COVID avian zoonotic borne? COVID कौन से animal से होता हुआ सुना आपने? Since the last 1 year we have been reading about COVID and we are studying it. It's a new disease, but as of now, what we know about COVID, it does not have any kind of zoonotic transmission. Okay. Tomorrow it might, some new form of COVID might come and we might have something कि monkey से COVID हो रहा है या tiger से हो रहा है कुछ हो रहा है. So as of today, there is no zoonotic transmission of COVID. It is a man-to-man transmission. ठीक है? Bird flu is zoonotic. It is written on your board also. उसके बाद okay. So Astha is asking that viruses need enzymes from living systems. So do they need same enzymes or different enzymes? So I'll not say exactly in terms of enzymes, but what I can tell you is that viruses are able to, they are specific, viruses also have specificity to the host. Like some viruses will grow in plants, some viruses will grow in bacteria, some viruses will grow in human beings. So in terms of enzymes also, this is how it's going to work out, that what enzymes they need, based on that they will be able to infect. But yes, different viruses can infect different organisms. That's what you should know. Vivek has asked, does virus has DNA as genetic material? Yes. Virus has DNA as genetic material, but some viruses can have RNA also. Like COVID virus has RNA. HIV virus, which is causing AIDS, it has RNA. But other viruses, hepatitis virus, dengue virus, they can have DNA also. Okay? Other than virus, all living organisms, they have DNA only, as the only main genetic material. What are allergic diseases and how do they work in the body? So allergy is something which is supposed to do with the immunity of your body. It is an immune response, in a way a protective response. Anything which the body feels is harmful for it, it gives a reaction by activating its immune system, and that is how allergy is going to come into being, right? We're going to discuss immunity in the next class and there will be more clear. Okay? Can drug resistance be transferred to the next generation? No. If you are talking about the fact that a baby would be born with that, no. If a baby is born and the mother has some drug resistance, she can transmit that to the baby after birth. But it is not like that during the time of birth, that kind of transmission is not there. Okay? If a mother is coughing, she has tuberculosis, which is drug resistant, yes, through that cough she can transfer it to the baby, but not naturally. It will not transfer. Okay. So Divyansh and Nikhil, I understand you're bombarded with queries. So if there are any more queries, we can take a few more minutes. Please post them to me. I'll try and help you out as much as I can. Till then, let me explain this one concept which has been raised in terms of transmission at birth. So there is this word called prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal. In terms of transmission of any conditions, these are the three ideas which are there: prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal. Prenatal means during pregnancy. Okay? This is during pregnancy or before birth, you can say. Anything, any process, any system, this is a generic term. I'm just giving you an idea of this. So, before birth. Perinatal means during birth. Like at that time when delivery is taking place. Okay? Postnatal, after birth. So, if we are giving some treatment, some therapy, some nutrition, so it can be categorized. Like for the mother, there can be different nutrients which you would want to give prenatal therapy or vaccination which you would want to give. Then there are some things which are happening at the time of birth and then after birth. So you should be familiar with these three terms. When we talk about infectious diseasing being transmitted from the mother to the child, we are usually talking about this stage, that during birth, diseases can be transmitted, right? This is called perinatal transmission. So we can have perinatal transmission of some diseases. That means from the mother to the child at the time of birth. Like HIV can have perinatal transmission. Or Zika virus also can have perinatal transmission. Okay? So, just to familiarize you with this idea, because of a query, I've put this across here. If we do not have any cure for virus, then on what basis is the COVID vaccine prepared? So I think this is Alicia or Alish, I don't know. We have to study vaccination, and I told you vaccination is preventive, not curative, right? See, every word, every idea which I'm putting across, it is important. So in the next class, we are going to study vaccination. Then you will understand how we are, or what we are doing about COVID. Okay? Next question. Ashirvad is saying, is it possible to prevent us from plasmodium infection? Yes. Machhar maro, malaria bachao. That is the only way out. If it is a vector-borne disease, the only way to prevent yourself from this is to kill the mosquitoes. And that is why every monsoon you have those advertisements. मच्छर मारिए, पानी मत जमा होने दीजिए, ठीक है? And Delhi में तो we have a very interesting thing. Every Sunday they say for 10 minutes you have to go and see all your pots, all your pans, everything ki at no place water is accumulated. Right? So that's the only way to prevent. If you don't allow mosquitoes to grow, you can prevent yourself from this disease. एक बार मच्छर काट गया फिर कोई नहीं रोक सकता, ठीक है? Once you've had that mosquito bite, then there is no respite. Oh, that rhymed, no? Okay. Can we categorize mental disorders in any category of diseases? Yes, Kundan, we can. We will categorize them in the next class in your non-communicable diseases. I guess you've studied so much about infectious that you forgot that there is another category. Non-communicable, non-infectious diseases. Okay? Okay. अब अगली क्लास में क्या करना है and what are the chapters which I want you to study? Let me tell you that. We're going to have a class, I think on 5th after this. So, a long time, almost a week. So, let me first tell you what we are going to do in the next class. In the next class, we will first cover non-communicable diseases, okay? Where we will have mental diseases. After that, we will study immunity and vaccination. Right? Chapters. So, class 8th, NCRT book. Just go through a chapter number 2. It will discuss some of the microorganisms that could be of some help. And class 9th, chapter number 13, it talks about why we fall ill. So that can give you some insight. I guess that should be all for here. All right. Chalo. So this is it. These two chapters, most of the content you get from your current affairs. I'm again repeating. But I hope whatever I have been able to get across to you, you've understood those concepts. Just go through whatever you've written, whatever you've heard today, revise it. If you have any queries, you can ask it in the next class also, right? So that's it for today. Thank you all. Wait. Okay, one more query I'll take. Okay, so SARS and MERS were zoonotic. Why not corona? See, corona or coronavirus, SARS and MERS is also corona. This is a different type. We are calling this COVID-19 virus. Okay? Because it has changed form, right? Because it has changed form, it will have a different mode of transmission. Okay? So Sumit, I hope you remember this. We studied A, B, C, D, E hepatitis viruses. They're all hepatitis virus. Like this is coronavirus. But they had different modes of transmission, right? Some A was from food and water, B was from body fluid, C was from blood. So when a virus changes forms, or when any pathogen changes forms, it becomes a different type. So what is going to happen is that its mode of transmission can vary. Right? That should not be a problem for you, right? So, because it has changed form, it has mutated, it is a different variety of virus now, having different kind of disease pattern, so its mode of transmission will also be different. Okay? All right. So, thank you and good night.